exciting part. Last talk of day number 1. And we have the king himself, Isaiah. Find him, bring him on board. There you are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Hey, that was harder than I thought it would be. I swear, every year I have to relearn how to use Zoom again. This is the only time all year that I ever use this tool. Everything else I use Discord for nowadays.
Okay.
All right. So are we online and good to go? And people can see.
We are online and good to go. You missed my entire, praising and awesome introduction of you.
Yeah, I was busy. There was 1,000 little dialogues that popped up as soon as I said share, and it wanted, me to click on 1,000 little things.
Enable the permissions to get Zoom to share your screen, and
No, it was one that said join with audio, but it stuffed it behind like 3 other windows. So I didn't. So I could see you and it said I was sharing, but that was it. All right. So can you see my screen right now?
Yep, I can see your screen. We can hear you. I think we're good to go.
Okay, let's go.
Perfect. It's all yours.
All right. So my name's Isaiah. I guess you got a little introduction of who I am. I run Your Head Software, and I wrote Stacks. I've been writing RapidWeaver plugins and doing development for the Macintosh as a professional since about 2005. I've been doing development since, oh my gosh, this is going to date me, since about 1980, when I was just a kid. But every year I try to give a talk or 2 talks sometimes at Joe's conference, and I've been giving talks that try to get people from going from being just like a user to being a pro. Like, what tips and tricks do you need to become a pro? And I thought I'd ramp it up to 11 this year, and not just go from user to pro, but from pro to developer. So, I want to show people how to build their own stack. But I know not everybody's a developer. So I'm going to try to keep it really simple. And in talking about keeping it really simple, let's talk about the agenda for today's talk and tell you what we're going to talk about. So this was actually my first agenda. And I did a run through of it, and it was like 2 hours long, and it would have bored you to tears. So we're going to make some cuts here. Instead of talking about a developer's toolbox and all the apps and docs and links that you'll need for that, we're just going to kind of cut out the developer part of that. And, we're just going to make it, a simpler toolbox. And instead of talking about all the stack internals, we'll just talk about some of the stack internals. And instead of building the minimum viable stack, we're just going to I'll just give it to you. And then lastly, I'm going to try to spend most of my time on building a stack that can show content that you would normally embed in your website. Something that you'd like paste in HTML from YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or something. And I want to show you how to build that yourself, because there's lots of times that you want to bring something like that into your RapidWeaver site, and pasting it as HTML over and over again can be a real drag. So let's build something real, but okay, maybe not real. Let's just make it simple. So, okay, what do we have? We have a simple toolbox, a few stack internals. We just download a minimum viable stack, and then we'll modify it to be something simple. One more change before we get going. I'm going to swap around 2 things. developers like to talk about tools, and they will listen ad nauseum to people talk about VI versus Emacs or all sorts of nitty gritty tool details, but it bores everybody else to tears. I know that. You know that. You don't want to listen to that. So I'm going to keep that part kind of short. And yeah, let's jump right in to talking about stack internals. And let's get our hands dirty immediately, or as quickly as I can get through the first few slides, and talk about what's inside a stack. And I want to show it to you. Okay, so let's talk about the anatomy of a stack. What is a stack? Because if you are going to build your own stack, you sure better know about what makes up a stack, why it is the way it is, and yeah, and where it lives, because you're going to have to go fiddle with it. All right, so that brings us to bundles. So what the heck is a bundle? A bundle is just a way of grouping together a bunch of files and folders and anything else that you would find on a computer, images, you name it, and sticking them all together into something that looks like one file. A good example of this is an app. So if you look at all the apps in your app folder on a Mac, all of those things are often hundreds and hundreds of files. But to you and me, when you go to double click on them, you can easily see that it just behaves like it's one single file. So how do we get things to be that way? We give them special extensions. Applications have the .app extension, and stacks have the .stack extension. When you give a folder a .stack extension, it will magically start looking like a stack, or it should. Sometimes you have to reboot your computer to get that to happen, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So this way of dealing with bundles and where we put those inside of something called the application support folder. Things like plugins, like Stacks itself. This is just a Macintosh way of extending an application. You can find there's lots of different systems for extending things. I'm going to talk later on about VS Code, and VS Code is a very extensible app. It uses a totally different, not Macintosh way of doing things. But Stacks and RapidWeaver and a lot of other apps, they follow this Macintosh way that was, I have no idea where it came from, probably from Next back in the 90s. But it uses this idea of bundles to store all of the resources, and you put those things in this special place in the operating system, and applications can easily load those in because it's the standard way. So we just do it the Mac way. And lastly, where do we put these things? We put them in the RapidWeaver add-ons folder and inside Stacks add-on folder itself, but that has changed. That place. When I started writing plugins, it was easy to go find this place. You just look inside the application support folder and boom, there was all of your application data. But Apple invented sandboxing, for good or bad, and later on invented app containers and and group containers, and every year it seems like they change the standard a little bit and hide things a little bit more. What that means for you is that it's really difficult to find where to go make these changes. Where do you actually do the development of a stack? And so we put an item right inside Stacks itself, and you can go click on the gear menu, open up your Stacks folder, and then start doing development or work however you want right away. You don't have to know where it is. It just finds it for you. So I'll show you that in the demo. And lastly, I want to talk about this thing called the DevStack extension. So what is a DevStack? Well, about 5 years ago, it was still a secret thing, but I would also load anything with this .devstack extension. So not just the .stack extension, but also .devstack. And the only reason I added this was because it's kind of a pain to get inside of these bundles all the time. And so we added this DevStack extension as just a shortcut. So when you're working on a stack, it makes it easy to work on it if you have this DevStack. But along the way, we discovered that there were other useful things to use, like we record some performance metrics when you have the .devstack extension, and we display some debugging info. It's great for if you're trying to debug an auto updater. I'm not going to talk about any of those things, not performance, not debugging, not auto updating. That's all out of the scope of this talk. It would take me another couple hours. But you know it's there. And I just also want to point out that recording metrics and outputting debugging information, that stuff comes at kind of a penalty. It makes your stack slower and makes stacks treat your stack a little bit differently. So if you ever decide to share a stack with somebody else or sell it, like Joe, and become the next Joe Workman, phenom of everything and launching a new stack every day, then you'll want to remove this .devstack extension and just use the plain vanilla stack extension, because DevStack slows things down. That's all. All right, so that is way too much talk. Let's see, 15 minutes. Okay, I'm on schedule. Here we go. No, back to demo. So let me jump out here, and I'm just going to go show you what some of these things are. Hide Keynote, and I'm going to open up RapidWeaver. All right, it shows the other screen. And oh, the most important thing, since you are now a developer, you have to switch to dark mode, because developers don't like light mode. It's just the way. So sorry, we're going to do everything in dark mode now. All right, so I'm just going to open up a blank document here. This has one stacks page. That's it. We're just going to use blank documents for most of our development work, because we don't want to complicate things with a real project. You don't want to mess up your project with crashes or crazy HTML code. So just stick to a blank project. It makes it super fast too. Okay, so I mentioned that there's a great way to find where your stacks live. You open up the gear menu, and it's the bottom item here, show stacks library in the Finder. There's also a command key too. You can do it from your reveal add-ons folder, command 7. It used to be command option 7, so in case you're using an ancient version. So command 7, boom, that opens up your add-ons folder no matter where it is. You see, I've customized mine. It lives right here on my desktop, so it's easy to find. But wherever your add-ons folder is, that's going to open it up. So I have an empty stacks folder right now. And you're going, oh my gosh, I have 10,000 stacks. Really, if you're doing some development work, make your life easy. Just start with a blank document, disable all your stacks, disable your other plugins, and really, I'm serious about this. I can't count the number of times I answer emails of, I have this problem. And the solution is you have, 10,000 old things that you never use cluttering up your add-ons folder. Stick to what you're using today. It's not too hard to open this thing up, drag a few things in, drag a few things out. So I'm going to drag in one thing right now, but we need to do one important thing. We need to quit RapidWeaver, because when we're moving things in and out of the add-ons folder, it's a good idea to not be running RapidWeaver, especially not if you have one of your projects that's important up on the screen. So I have an mbs.stack.zip. I was trying desperately to get this uploaded to my GitHub account, so you could download it right afterwards. But there's new GitHub authorization stuff, and it's driving me crazy. So yeah, give me like 5 more minutes. I'll get it uploaded. And there is actually already an MVS repository. It's just empty. And that's in the Your Head GitHub pages. Anyway, so this is what's going to be there, is one stack. So we'll drag in our stack. There is our minimum viable stack. It has hardly anything in it. I'll talk more about what's inside, but just to show you how to peek inside, normally we would show package contents. And this is what a bundle looks like. If you look inside an app or any other bundled thing on a Mac, it will have very, very similar file structure. It's sort of a required file structure to do this auto loading mechanism that macOS does. And inside you'll find this thing. It's called info.plist. That's not LNFO, it's capital INFO. And it has to be called this. You can't change the name. And a resources folder. The resources is where you put any of your stuff that is going to build up this stack. And we'll talk more about how stacks are built up a little bit later. But the simple idea is that we take the content of the stacks. In this case, it's some CSS, some HTML, and some JavaScript. Actually, the CSS and JavaScript files are empty here, but they will get loaded automatically and smashed together, and that builds up your page. That's how stacks works on the inside. But in order to tell stacks where to look, it uses this info.plist. And you can see here, there's a preview over on the side, and oh my gosh, it's horrific. It's XML. Plist can actually be binary files, XML. There's some other weird standard. I think it's called plist format. It's ancient, maybe not even supported anymore. But suffice it to say that plists come in a lot of different flavors. And you'll probably just use this XML flavor, but who likes to edit XML? Nobody likes to edit XML. It's horrible. So you'll probably want to get something that can edit a plist. And we'll talk more about the apps that can do that later on. Right. So I just wanted to dig in and rip apart a stack just to show you what's on the inside. It's really not all that complex. You got some properties here, and I'll open up this file. I'm going to use Xcode. Xcode is free, by the way, and you can get it on the App Store. And it's rather overkill for editing plists, if that's all you're using it for. It takes like an hour to download. It's so huge, but it's free, and it does a pretty decent job at editing plists. You can see that this stack hardly has any properties. I kept it really as slim as I possibly could. And if you read through this list, some of the items might be pretty esoteric, but most of the stuff is pretty basic. We have things like the version number, the title, I think you can figure those out. But we'll go into some more detail when we actually build our own stack. All right, so I'm going to jump back over to slides for a second, and then we'll talk about some of our tools. This is that boring section, but I'll try to race through, and we'll get back to doing some real demos. I have to, because we're supposed to be almost half done now. So yeah, let's get to it. Right, so let's talk about a simplified toolbox of apps. And I'm going to focus here on things that you can get for free that are super simple, but also we'll give you some links to some things that are also better, like one step up. So what are you going to need? Apps wise, you're going to need a text editor. And this does not mean Microsoft Word. Maybe if you've come to these conferences before, I've talked about text editing. That's one of my old talks. So it's an editor of plain text. Your Mac comes with a plain text editor. That's just fine. You can use that. But there are lots of others, and most of them are actually free. So in fact, I don't think there's anything on my list. No, I do include one thing. Along with a text editor, you'll need a plist editor. I was using Xcode, and I'd encourage you to start there because, well, it's free and it's great, so it's hard to beat. But there are things that beat it, so I'll talk about those too. And a nice to have is something that's good at editing HTML specifically. Now, I know you're probably not going to be doing a lot of HTML development. That's why you bought RapidWeaver, right? It's to stay away from that. But you might want to copy and paste some. And a lot of HTML editors have a nice feature where they can preview that HTML. So even if you're not tweaking it or editing it, even if you're just working copy paste, then having something that can preview that is a nice to have, but it's not essential. Okay, docs, well, you'll need access to the Stacks API. There'll be a link to that in a later slide. And links. Well, I give in the next slide a bunch of links to some of the examples that are up and have been up for like a decade now, I think, on GitHub. So go have a look at those. You can download them, rip them apart, tweak them. You can even just change them a tiny bit and re-release them yourself if you want to. They are completely open source and completely free to use and abuse as much as you like. Okay, so detailed about text editing. Let's talk about text editors. So Microsoft Word isn't a text editor. That's a word processor. And the differentiator here is that Microsoft Word lets you add styles to things like bold and fonts and make columns and margins. And, it's like RapidWeaver, but not for the web. It's like RapidWeaver for your printer. But we don't want that. What we want is just to edit plain text. Just text, no styles, no fonts, nothing extra. Because when you're building HTML or building plists or building anything that is going to be read by the computer, you want to stick to just plain text. So some examples of text editors are TextEdit. Well, I mean, the name says it all. That's what comes with your Mac. If you click on a .text file, txt, or .text, that's what's going to open by default if you've installed no other apps. It's fine. It can edit text, but it also behaves as a word processor, which makes it a little bit confusing. So you have to be really careful. If you start with a plain text file, it will keep editing plain text. If you start with a styled file, it will keep editing styled stuff. But moving back and forth between the two is problematic. So I'd actually avoid using TextEdit if I could, and use something like VS Code. There's a bunch of other great examples too. So like I said, a simple one is TextEdit. Free VS Code, it's made by Microsoft. Some people don't like it because it's not very Macintosh. But then again, none of the great text editors are. A great text editor that I myself used for years is Sublime Text. It's super, super fast. So if you want to edit 10,000 line text files, then Sublime Text is the tool for you. A license to Sublime is actually not cheap, but it's a really great app too. So yeah, support those guys if you do use their software. Something nerdy, you can always use VIM. There's a Mac app that makes VIM easy to use. It's still really hard to use, but I love VI. It was made in the 70s and it's still around today. In fact, I use this app probably more than any other app on my Mac. And can you believe it? I mean, what is that? Like 60 years or something it's been going, and it's still around. It must be great if it's been around for so long.
Nerd alert.
Yeah, exactly. All right, plist editing. So what is a plist? It's just a list of properties. It's just short for property list. And it has a file extension of .plist. Now, other OSs and platforms have other ways of storing properties. You'll see JSON, JSON is like the newfangled format in the past few years. XML is an old standard. Nowadays it's old. It was new when we started out with stacks. But plists are the Macintosh way. So that's the way that we chose to use. I think if I had to do it over again, I might do JSON now. It's a little bit easier to read if you just open it up from text. And there's a lot of JSON editors out there. In fact, there's some good JSON converters. So you could write in JSON, convert over to a plist, although that is kind of a pain if you're doing it over and over again. So do you really need a plist editor? Well, no, not technically, because there are so many ways to edit a plist. You could just use the text editor, or you could use like a JSON converter. But you know, Xcode is free and it's pretty great. So yeah, give that a shot. So what are some examples? Text edit. I mean, that's simple. You can open it up in TextEdit and you can make edits. But Xcode is free and it's a lot better, and it'll keep you from making syntax errors. A really great app is plist edit Pro. I mention it because a good friend of mine writes this app and has done for like 15 years or something now. So yeah, it does pretty much everything. It's like the kitchen sink of plist editors. But if you want something great, go try that out. There's a few other things on the App Store too. If you search for plist, it'll pop up. And nerdy, hey, VI, you can use VI again. Of course, VI. Yeah, don't use VI unless you love VI. So docs and links, I'm just gonna rip through this because this is just sort of a catalog of some links that are important. But these first three are the ones to focus on. Number one, the Stacks API is api.yourhead.com. And there's a link on every page on my website to api.yourhead.com. Just look at the bottom of our site. The Your Head GitHub has a bunch of good stuff in it too. I'm going to put this MVS stack that we're going to play with today. It's going to go up there. Our old reliable image fund stack, this is sort of a complete example. It has hierarchical stacks and it uses image transforms, and it does a whole bunch of good stuff. So if you want to see a complex stack doing complex things, go check out the image fund stack. And then here's a whole bunch more good stuff. These are more to demonstrate a specific part of the Stacks API. So if you're interested in like all the different controls that you can have in a stack in the sidebar, you know, then yeah, go download the control stack. It demonstrates every single one. I use these for testing, but they're also good if you're just, you know, stuck and you want to know how do I use a slider? It doesn't make sense. Yeah, go check out the controls API. It has sort of the de facto way to use pretty much every control. Right, so I want to jump back in and do a little demo here. We're gonna just check out a couple of details about editors, but I'm gonna breeze through this pretty fast because now we are behind schedule. All right, so yeah, before I showed Xcode as a plist editor, this is what it looks like. Each line is a property, and these are the names of all the properties. This is the content of the property, and this one in the middle says what sort of information you're giving it. So yeah, string, that's pretty obvious. It's just some text. But there's also some interesting ones, like this preprocessor line is a Boolean, whatever that means. That just means, is it yes or no? So it's like a checkbox. But there's some other good stuff. If you see these little arrows, that's a disclosure, and there's more information underneath. Now we're just going to go edit these things. So you won't have to make any new ones or anything like that. For most of the stacks that you're just going to kind of bash together, we'll just be editing one of the examples. So don't worry too much about the details here. Just focus on the one or two important parts. And we'll get to those when we actually do the real demo. Right. So let's take a quick peek at text edit. The icon looks like this, and it's in your applications folder. If you double click it, it has this sort of confusing, you have to ask it for a new document. And if you get a new document, instantaneously you see, uh-oh, that's a font. So I must not be in plain text mode. If you can see font stuff, that's bad. So up here, you can choose make plain text. The font stuff goes away. So now we're in plain text mode. And anything that we type in here, it's just characters. No fonts, nothing else. That's what you want for a text editor. But like I said, you know, give yourself a break. Get an upgrade from text edit. You know, spend all of $0 and download Xcode. Notice I have multiple versions of Xcode installed here because Joe always plans this conference the day before the new release comes out. You know, we have a new Mac OS that's dropping on Monday, and I'm just trying to decide, do I install beta software and test things out, or do I give this conference talk and keep my Mac stable? So I had to like use multiple computers in the past week. It's been crazy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So yeah, download Xcode. It's a good plist editor. It also does text editing, of course. I like VS Code, and it's pretty nice. Here, check this out. Here is our stack, and I'm going to change it. Let's see. Let's move up a couple directories. Boom, boom. So now we're in our stacks folder, and I'm going to use that magic dev stack extension, dev stack. Now we can see right in there. So we don't have to, pry it open. It just looks like any other folder. But I'm going to drop this whole folder onto VS Code. That's this one. And check this out. It shows me the whole directory structure of my stack and all the files in it. So if I want to go edit some CSS or HTML or even the plist, don't do that. Stick to plist editors. Editing XML is horrific. All right, so that's just a brief, excuse me, I just whacked my microphone there. That's just a brief intro to some of the tools that you'll need to start working inside of a stack. Right, so now there's kind of nothing left to do but talk about what we're gonna do, like actually build something. So let me introduce you to this minimum viable stack. So this is what we're gonna bash. You know, they talk about bashing an app is like when you take somebody else's app and you just tweak it enough to do the one thing that you need it to do. So it's you're not really doing development, you're just bashing somebody else's code. So what is this minimum viable stack for? It's for doing this. It's a starting place. And it's great for quick debugging. If you find a problem in a really complex stack and you need to figure out what the heck is going on, just grab that little tiny problem bit and paste it into a fresh copy of the minimum viable stack. And then you can debug that one thing in isolation, because nothing makes debugging harder than doing it with a big project or with 1,000 other plugins. So what is the minimum viable stack not for? Well, it's not very useful. It doesn't do anything, really. It doesn't even demonstrate the wide breadth of controls. It doesn't do any debugging for you. It doesn't really do anything. It's just the minimum. It also tries to stay away from some of the more complex topics of stacks. No PHP, no file type templates, no scope templates. I could go on. There's no inheritance, no image transform, no partials, none of that. It's just the basics, HTML, CSS, and I begrudgingly threw in a JavaScript file there just to show you what automatically loads. All right, I'm going to skip doing any more demos until we get to like the real code. And what do we want this demo to actually do? Well, we want to make a reusable stack to show off embedded content. I'm going to use Instagram because everybody knows it. We want to make it a little bit customizable. And if we have some time, or if you guys aren't too bored, I'll try to make it a little bit responsive, which is tough for embedded content, because oftentimes embedded content does not like to be responsive. So we'll show you some sneaky ways that we can get around that. Right, so I'm going to put away slides for now. We've looked enough at black screens and text. And let's get going. So I'm going to edit this plist. And what do we need? What must we edit in here? Well, we better change the title. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to find our stack. So I'm just going to call it embed. But I'm going to leave the subtitle as minimum viable stack. I must change the bundle identifier. So what is the bundle identifier? This is the ID of your stack. This is what makes your stack your stack. It has this weird format. It's like a domain name, but backwards. And this is reverse domain name format is a standardized programming trick to ensuring that you make a unique ID. So this ID has to be unique. No other stack can have this ID. If you use the ID that some other stack developer used, then stacks will think this stack is that stack. And it'll only load one of the two. It won't let you load in more of the same stack. So we have to change it. You can put anything you like in here, but do yourself a favor. Stay away from any complexity. Keep it simple. Use the format that I've shown here. Change what you need to. This should be your organization. So this should be your organization. You don't have to place stack there, but give it a name. So this is going to be the embed stack. You can ignore versions. In fact, look, I'll just delete it. Author, you can put your author name here. If you delete author, stacks won't show that field. Don't worry about it. Copyright, totally unessential. But if you do want to distribute your stack, make sure you put something, take credit for your work. The rest of this stuff is, just leave it alone. This shows where the stack is going to be organized in the stacks library. And these are all the templates that are going to be included. There's an HTML, CSS, and a JavaScript. But if you're just, pasting in some HTML you found, use what's here. Keep it simple. Right, done. We're done with plist editing. So let's open up RapidWeaver now. And hopefully, if we've done our plist editing correctly, then there should be a new stack called the embed stack somewhere in here. And there it is. It's at the bottom. And if we drag it over, it should place down. And this stack shows hello world and the number 5. So the 5 is this slider over here. And hello world is this text. So we could change it to hi world. This is just to show you an example of properties. But we're going to delete this and we're going to go get some code from Instagram. So let's quick do that. So I'm going to open up a web browser page. Here we go. And we're going to go to Instagram. Oh, and it jumped immediately to my thing. You can see I've already got 2 direct messages and I cleared them out this morning in prep for this demo. People love to ask me very impolitely for my Instagram account name because I have the name Isaiah. In fact, a guy tried to harass me for it for about a year and a half. He sent me pizzas from Domino's and every other pizza joint, basically continually, like every 3 days or so, I got a new pizza. And yeah, he's in the Rikers federal prison right now for that. He actually much more aggressively attacked other people. So yeah, be nice online. Don't go to jail. That's the little side topic I have. And also do yourself a favor. Avoid getting an Instagram name that everybody else wants. It really it's a bummer. Anywho, jumping back into our demo, I want to grab this content because we want to embed this into our RapidWeaver site. And Instagram doesn't make it too painful. You just click embed here. And they even provide a copy. Okay. So I think we're done with that. And then we just go paste it in. Now, normally what would you do? You'd get out an HTML stack and we'd open up the HTML stack and we paste in that embed code. And oh, well, that's nice code because we all know what exactly that does. Now, I've been writing HTML since HTML started, like really. I have no idea what this does. Well, okay, I have some idea, but like I wouldn't have the faintest clue as how to change this stuff. But I will show you some secrets to, trying to whack at it a bit to get it to do your bidding. But let's see if this HTML stack does the thing. Well, it's not going to show up in edit mode here because it's using some HTML to do some magic to pull in this Instagram content. And that script doesn't run inside edit mode. But if we preview, hopefully, hey, there it is. So that's just using an HTML stack. But what we'd like to do is, make that into something reusable that we can use on any of our sites. So we're going to edit this embed stack. And I'm going to open up my stacks folder, show stacks library. Here it is. Here's our MVS dev stack that we're hacking on. And we want to go put our content, just like we pasted it into an HTML stack, we're going to paste it into an HTML template. So remember, I opened up Visual Studio Code, VS Code. And these are all the files in that stack. So here's the HTML one. There's only one thing that has HTML, so it's not too terribly difficult to find. And I'm just going to paste in our embed stuff after the content that's there. The content that's there is strange, but I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute. So there's Instagram's wonderful gobbledygook. Oh, it looks like I have a shell script bug. Yeah. Reminder to self, don't edit your bash scripts right before you give a talk. That's anyway. Okay, so I pasted in this content and I'm gonna save that. And then let's jump over to RapidWeaver and see if we could bring, oh, hey, look, it's already there. Just like by magic, delete the HTML. Just by magic, it actually reread our stack, even though we just changed it. We didn't have to restart RapidWeaver or drop in the stack again. It just noticed that there's new content inside there. Now, there is a secret to that. It will only do that if you use that dev stack extension. And it doesn't work on every sort of file, but files that that Stacks knows about, like these HTML templates, it will read those and update them live as you edit them. So let's preview this, and hey, there's our content. And just for fun, let's make a 2-column stack, and we'll put one in one column, and we'll drag another copy into the other column, and we'll preview it, and boom, yeah, it's working. So it's just as easy as that. You go grab content, and just like you pasted it into an HTML stack, you can paste it into an HTML template. inside one of our demo stacks. Uh-oh. Can you guys still hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I think my headphones just disconnected. Give me a sec.
Sure.
Did I run out of batteries? Bluetooth has seized on my computer. Hold on, guys. You're gonna have to bear with me. I can't even move my mouse.
Okay.
Something went absolutely bonkers.
Because you edited the bash script.
Well,
You should have done it in
see if I
C
can
shell.
live make corrections here. No, this mouse is not going to have it. All right, what else can we do? How about, hey Joe, can you say something?
Yes,
can I hear you?
I'm talking right now. I can hear you.
Oh yeah.
I can hear you.
Bluetooth has decided to just die spontaneously. Give me 2 seconds. Hey, I can move my mouse again.
There we go.
I still can't hear you.
You still can't hear me?
Yeah, there's no Bluetooth on my computer anymore, but I can turn up my speakers. All right, but you can hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Okay, there might be a bit of an echo, so I'll make sure to turn down my speakers in case you talk. And I'm using a trackpad, which I can't stand. So yeah, this is going to be entertaining is what it's going to be. All right. Okay, so without further ado, let's see if we can improve upon this wonderful stack that we've just built. Because it's really pretty simple. We just pasted this content in, and although it's nice to be able to show this one post on Instagram, it would be nicer if we could like choose which post we were showing. Well, conveniently, when you're on Instagram, did I put that down here? If you're looking at any old post, so here's some nice windmills. The URL has this little ID here. And if we just paste that ID in, we could probably make it so that, yeah, it showed different posts. We just have to somehow find out where to put that into this, which should be totally easy, right? Well, actually, it's actually not too terribly hard. So the way we go about it is, I'll show you the trick, is let's go back to the post that we were using. We'll grab the ID from that one. And let's just go looking for that in this big blob of horribleness. So I will hunt for that word. And now let's, instead of pasting one other thing, let's steal this bit of text here. This was the text right from the sidebar that originally said, hello world. See, it says text property. And so that is just a shorthand way of sticking that property wherever we want it to go. So I'm just going to select that. We'll cut it. And then I'll go through this big blob and I'll replace word on anywhere I find it with that bit of text. And that's it. Okay, we've made a change now, but we didn't even really do any development. We didn't have to understand what we were doing particularly. I just went and hunt and replaced one little tiny weird thing with this text property. So let's go back and look inside RapidWeaver and see if it did anything interesting. So right now, that text property is going to be hi world, which is not very interesting. But we had, let's see, let's grab the thing for this guy. That's one, copy. I'll put that into one. And then let's grab the windmills. That's this one. Copy. And now let's put that in this other sidebar. Paste. And preview. Right. Hey, that was sweet. We just instantly made a way to embed whichever Instagram post we want. All we have to do is know that little code and we can change it. We can even do it live. Watch this. Let's see. Oh, Legos. I like Legos. So we'll grab the ID for that one. And paste that. And as soon as we enter it, it refreshes the page and boom, we have a new embed. It'll even do other users. In a strangity of Instagram, not every embed is like this, but you don't even have to be logged in as that user, or you don't have to know the user ID. Every post on Instagram has one of these unique little, yeah, it's a unique ID. Anyway, as long as you know that post ID, paste it in there, you're good. I'm just gonna go clean this up by deleting the rest of this stuff, but hey, we can use that number. So right now it's number 5, but you know, whatever we do the slider for, well, as soon as it refreshes the page, you get that number. So why don't we use that as a way of, you know, changing the width, maybe making it a bit more, if not responsive, at least flexible. So one of the ways we can do that is by writing a bit of HTML. Now, I got you this far. What are we up to? Okay, it's been an hour. I'm already over, Joe. I'm sorry. I'm going to try to wrap up in 10 minutes.
No worries.
But I've got you this far. I've done a whole hour, and all we've done is copy and paste on code. I haven't written any HTML or CSS, and we've done a lot. We've learned a lot. But it is finally time. I have to kind of break my rule and write a tiny bit of HTML, but I'll keep it short and sweet. And I'll do it on the fly here. So they tell you never code during a demo because, yeah, it will never work. So I'm going to try to live code here, and let's see if we can make it go. All we need is a div. That's just a division of your web page. And we need to give it some class. We'll call it my class. And then we need to put this slash div at the bottom, way down here. Oh. Slash div, okay. So now I put a sort of boundary around this code. And now we can do with it a little bit more. And this embed from Instagram won't bend completely, but it is a little bit flexible. And I'll show you what I mean. So let's look back at our HTML. Here it is. What we want to do is apply a width around this thing. So I'm going to do that with CSS. If you've ever used CSS, it's kind of a weird format. And we want to use that class that we just invented, my class. And we want to apply a width to it. But I want to use that number, right? And we had that from our original file. There it is, the slider property. So it's called a slider because you slide this slider thing. That's the control. And we get a hold of the data that it's outputting, that the number that's changing right there, that guy. See, as I slide, whoop, it changes. We get a hold of that with this, that word, which is in the documentation, which we'll go have a look at. I kind of skipped over that bit, but the documentation is on the API page. I was going to do a little bit more where I walked through some of the API, but yeah, more code, so I'm avoiding it. So I'm going to delete it from here and put it into our CSS, right there. I need to give it some units. So whatever that number is, and then pixels. That's all. So width, pixels. And let's put a border around this just so we can see it for debugging purposes. So I'll make the border 2 pixels and solid red. Right. So the question is, will this actually do anything at all when I go back and look at it? So there is our width of 2, and you can see it's probably going to grow. Oh, it didn't grow. That's a bad sign. Dun, 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 dun. ID, no, percent sign, ID, percent sign, class. Anything change? Nothing is, oh, there, it's changing. It's just very, very small. Okay, so we are going to need to change how big this slider is, because right now it goes from 0 to 10, and 10 is not a very big width. The minimum size of an Instagram post, by the way, is the exact size of the original iPhone. A weird fact. So let's jump back over to our plist, and we'll go look at custom items. Now, custom items is the sidebar controls. These are the custom items of your sidebar. So here's the slider. It's item number 1 if you start counting from 0 like a developer. And we want to make, let's see, min, max. So we're going to change those. I think you can probably figure out what those mean. So the minimum is 325 pixels because that's the original size of the iPhone. And the maximum, well, I don't think it'll get much larger than 500, but let's put 600 just for fun. And default, well, it better at least, the default should probably be at least as large as the minimum, but let's choose 400. And I'm going to get rid of these two items, ticks and snap. You can go look that up in the api.yourhead.com reference, but essentially those choose how many little divisions here there are and whether the slider snaps to them or not. So now that I've saved it, we get a different sort of slider. It looks a little bit, yeah, it's rounder. I'm not a super fan of these new style sliders that look like iOS, but I guess they're more familiar for iPhone users. Anyway, it now changes the size of our embed there, and we can do each one independently too. So let's move this one out here. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so now we can have multiple different sizes of embedded Instagram. Can go down to 325, hopefully. And then preview, boom, 325, or a bit larger. So the secret to getting these things to be responsive is don't fight it. And I hate to say this, but these embedded things kind of win all those sorts of fights. So you have to just go with the flow. We can change the size, but getting them to be flexible and responsive can be really hard. So one of the easiest things that we can do is, just use multiple copies and kind of cheat. So let's set up the first item, and we'll make it as small as we possibly can. And we will show this one on desktop, but hide it on mobile. And then we'll make these guys show the same exact thing, but we'll make this one as big as we can. Let's see, it went over its maximum size. It's probably 500. Anyway, we'll make this one pretty large, and we'll show this one on, wait, did I show that one on desktop and hide on mobile? We want that the other way around. This one, we want to hide on mobile and show on the desktop because it's bigger. All right, let's see how that looks in practice. Okay, so in practice, only one of them shows up, and hopefully, if we make this page smaller, it gets smaller. So on mobile, it's going to shrink up this box. And just to clean up here, because I like things nice and tidy, I'm going to get rid of this extra line there. And this border, because we don't want that border cluttering things up. Right, so no more debugging border. The slider now works. It's responsive. And it's a new stack that we made ourselves with a little help. So right, that is how to bash the minimum viable stack into doing your bidding to show some embedded content in a web page and kind of build a stack all for yourself. Now, of course, we've only just scratched the surface of this whole thing. We've only peeked at the iceberg, at the top. There's still another 80% of iceberg underneath. There's so much more to learn about building stacks. But I encourage you to try. A lot of the API is designed to, expose itself to you gradually. So, for someone like Joe, there's tons and tons of API for him to use, and JavaScripts and libraries and shared, and it's so much stuff. But when you're just getting going, there's a few things that you can edit to get you started. So I'm just going to end it there and say, if there are any questions that you have, just go ahead and ask those. I think I need to open up this chat again if somebody wants to ask a question.
One thing that I think is you fixed an issue, but you didn't explain what the fix was.
I knew you would notice that.
The only reason I point that out is because it's actually a pretty big thing with
Sure.
CSS especially. So
Okay.
if you could just do a 2-minute
Yeah.
explanation of that, I think that'd be very good.
So what Joe's talking about is my one little fix here. I wanted to talk as little about coding as possible, but I did add one thing here. It's this bit %ID %. Now, normally, if you were building a class like this, and go copy and paste this whole section, we would add an ID for if you wanted to specify I can't type and talk at the same time. If you want to specify one specific element on your web page, you use this pound sign or hash sign, and then you use the ID of that object. Well, in our case, we don't know the ID of the object, but the Stacks API provides us a way of hooking in to the IDs that Stacks generates. And we use this little nomenclature %ID %. And so that's going to be filled in with whatever the ID is of each element on the page. And so I needed to add that because otherwise we were applying this width to every stack that has this class, which in our case was multiple things on the page, because we had 2 stacks and they both had that class. So we needed to specify something exactly. I just breezed right through that because I knew it would take another 5 or 10 minutes. So thanks for noticing, Joe.
Wait.
But if there aren't any other questions, I will step back and let Joe take over from here, because I know the 45 minutes that he allotted me went by half an hour ago, and the hour that I had allotted myself went by 15 minutes ago. So I'm way past.
I loved the presentation, I have to say. So I did a live stream a few weeks ago on actually how to build a stack. And I breezed through probably 90% of what you talked about today. Probably, and I say that's a good thing, because I love that you really took the time to get those fundamentals. I was just kind of like, here's a package, it's some folders, and then these are the files you need, and then
it all comes down to your audience,
totally.
The people that were going to click your video or visit your live stream probably knew that, but I'm subjecting all of your conference goers to this. So I knew I think
that's a very good thing, because I tend to breeze through, a lot of that stuff. And I love that. I love when, me and you obviously have very different styles. And I love when I see, you present, because it's just like, man, I love how he did that, and it was just like, I need to be able to do more like that, So awesome, dude. Thank you very much.
I have one more thing for you, which is, I don't think you've ever seen me with a beard.
I've seen a picture.
So if I think, how do I?
There you are. Check out that beard.
So
man, it's gotten pretty big, man.
Yeah, this is my second time, and I went to the hairstylist like 6 weeks ago and said, please just give me a tiny trim. because my hair was shoulder length. And she just butchered it and chopped off all my hair. So I had long hair and a beard. I was going full hippie for you, but
Wow.
yeah.
Got the Birkenstocks on too?
No, but I'm totally barefoot, so I'm even better. All right. I think that ought to do it. So
Sweet.
thanks, Joe, for inviting me. Thanks anybody who listened to that. If you want the next step, there's lots more examples on GitHub, or go watch Joe's live stream, and yeah, go from there.
Thanks for coming on today, buddy. I really appreciate it.
No
Hopefully you'll
worries.
be able to attend the hangouts or the rest of the conference if you're, if you're willing to pop in if you're bored this weekend. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely. I can't right now. I have to go pick up a kid in a few
No
minutes.
worries.
He's at a football game doing
Sweet.
marching band.
Awesome, dude. I've been enjoying those picks. Yeah, that looks so. I missed the marching band. I was in marching band in high school. So awesome.
My son is in the #1 marching band in the entire country, and it is so brutally difficult. I can't believe how much they practice, but he loves it. Loves it.
Sweet. Well, cool,
All right,
dude.
guys.
Thank you very much. We'll talk to you later, Isaiah.
Bye.
Bye.